HBO has gotten weird over the years, probably because they ended Game of Thrones. Well, that isn't the point. I'm here to tell you about a missing episode of a show called Tales from the Crypt. If you don't know about it, Tales from the Crypt is about a show about a zombie-like guy named Crypt Keeper, who tells stories about blood, gore, and death. However, I encountered something dark within this series. One day I was at Goodwill buying some crappy PS2 games like Karaoke Revolution, a crappy Just Dance Revolution ripoff. I was re-renting my stuff when I had a memory that I had a VCR. I went to the VHS section and found a few kids movies like All Dogs Go to Heaven and Furthermore. I was scrolling through the video section and I came across something interesting. The tape was called the tape was titled TFTC. I later then noticed that it was Tales from the Crypt. I decided to relive my final year of the 80s. I bought the tape and drove home. When I got in, I shoved the tape into my VCR and started watching it. The tape started with the HBO original programming logo. Then it cut to the intro, but something was wrong with it. The gate looked like it was down for some reason. Another thing was, there was also no sight of music anywhere. All you could hear was screaming and ghost sounds. And at the end of the theme song, the Crypt Keeper refused to come out of his tombstone. I swear this scene lasted for about 4 minutes because he came out finally. However, the Crypt Keeper didn't laugh as he always did. He just said his mouth shut. The episode for some reason did not begin with the Crypt Keeper. Instead, it was a woman named Amanda from the theatrical movie from Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight. She was sitting in the Crypt Keeper's chair. Then she began to speak by saying, "Hey everyone, my name is Amanda. If you're probably wondering where the Crypt Keeper is, well, he killed himself." That was when things got weird. It faded to show a church where people were gathering up to show for a funeral. Everyone was sobbing and etc. It then showed a man who was John Lasseter in a church cloak. Then he looked up and spoke the words for the funeral. "We are here to gather today to honor the death of Crypt Keeper today. He was a really cool zombie person who told stories that frightened us and furthermore. We should take the time to say a few things about him." Then the episode cut to very loud static, and this went on. I got on my phone to watch some YouTube. I swear the static lasted for about 3 minutes. When it ended, something really scared the crap out of me. The Crypt Keeper was in a dark room hanging on the ceiling, and there was music, but it was hidden from the level from Sonic.exe. The episode then cut to the credits, but instead of the Crypt Keeper's house going backwards as it usually does, it was a picture of a dead cat in the dark. I noticed that it kept playing the music at the same image as it ended. The tape then cut to static, and I quickly grabbed the tape and smashed it on the floor a few times before heading outside to destroy it with my hammer. I have gotten nightmares from all this stuff, and a few days later, I got on my computer and emailed HBO about this missing episode, and they somehow managed to get it. Later on, this is what they said. "Dear Toby Ashley, thank you for taking the time to write an email to us. What you have watched was really disturbing. Back in 1996, we were planning to end the series finale with Nally. However, we did not want to show this episode to the public because of its graphic content. We had no idea who created the episode, but we are doing our best we can to find out him or her. We'd like to give our thanks to you for typing this letter to us. Best wishes, HBO." I have decided that do not want to watch Tales from the Crypt anymore because of what happened. I don't have any interest on the movies and TV shows with John Kaser, the voice actor for Crypt Keeper, anymore. I can't take it anymore. I have to go now. I think the Crypt Keeper is haunting my dreams. And that, my little pretties, was the Crypt Keeper's funeral, a Tales from the Crypt Lost episode creepypasta written by Ashley Armbruster. My final thoughts on this story? Oh my goodness, this has been taken down memory lane, because I remember I narrated this back in 2019, I believe. I know it was, a couple years ago, but holy, this story really takes me down memory lane, because I remember I narrated this back in 2019, and this story was definitely, I think this story I did say was interesting. But at the same time, I kind of really feel that this story was just nothing more but cliched. Like, I know it's an older story, so I'm not going to go too harsh. because I kind of said this, a bit. I think I might have been rough the last time I reviewed this. I don't know. I don't really remember because it's been hell of a long time. But I could definitely say the story was definitely had an interesting concept. Like, the first part was, basically this episode did have a somewhat of a reliable, interesting concept. But at the same time, the issue with the story was it's just cliched. Crypt Keeper ends up, taking his own life for whatever reason. There's, no reason why he did that. And there was no hyper-realistic gore or anything, thank God, because not 99.9% creepypastas nowadays, they really do, that. This story does not have, blood or gore or anything. It had, the VHS cliche at the Goodwill. I already said that begin is just, don't use too many cliches. I understand this is an older story, so I'm not going to go too harsh. I'm not going to. The one of the things I really didn't, really care for this story at all was the fact that the music from Sonic.exe was there. I was like, oh my god. How is adding music from Sonic.exe make it scary? It just doesn't make it any scary. That's the thing. I'm kind of sick and tired of seeing creepypastas that do this. I'm not saying names on who writes these kind of stories, but I know this is an older story, so I'm willing to, not be too harsh. But I'm just going to sit there and just explain this story. Now, the grammar of the story was good, I'm not going to lie. It did have, good grammar. Although I did spot some grammatical errors in the story, so there were parts of the story that was a bit, difficult for me to read. Especially at certain parts. But I definitely would have to say the story was... It's not terrible, I'm not going to lie. It's not a terrible story. There were, parts of the story that does need, improvement, such as the grammar. The sentence structuring was alright for the most part, I'm not gonna lie, the sentence structuring was alright, although there were parts of the story that does need, there were places that should have had, commas, or they weren't there, or they were just all over the place, so that kind of made the story a bit difficult for me to sit there and read. I'm not saying that just to be not to be insulting. No, I'm not saying that to be insulting in any way, shape, or form. I just say it just for, just to point out the issues. Now, another thing I really would have to say was that the story of its own self does need, improvement. I know this is an older story, but I just thought I would point it out. And the grammar of this story was good for the most part, although it could be fixed up, mainly with the grammatical errors and punctuation errors that does need to be worked on, but I'm not gonna, go harsh on this person, which I'm taking it easy because, because that's not who I was back then. Well, I was new to creepypastas, so I'm not gonna go be hypocritical on that. But I definitely would have to say that this story did have, some interesting concept regarding, what's actually happening or something, which I definitely would have to say. It's not a terrible story. It does need some, improvement. Mainly with the punctuation and the punctuation marks does need to be revised a bit in certain parts, because there were even some parts that I could barely read because, it was not barely, but it was hard to read at times. Same thing with, same thing with this sentence structuring, because there was places that should have been, commas or periods, or they weren't there for some reason. But I'm taking it that this is an older story, so there's nothing really, much complaining I can do, because I don't see any complaining. But I would have to say the ending just wasn't really that satisfying, because mainly it's like a, kind of like a cliched ending, because a lot of creepypastas do, sitting there and saying, I decided that I will not watch this show again because of this. Okay, I could take it if it's a funny pasta, but if it's a regular creepypasta, it just doesn't work, because about pretty much a grand majority of creepypastas do tend to sit there and do that. I literally don't know why they do it, but they sit there and actually do it, and it kind of gets on my nerves when I see those kind of pastas, even though I'm trying to find something decent. But to be completely honest, this story just didn't, it's not a terrible story, but it does need some improvement. And it did have an interesting concept of the episode. It's not hyper-realistic blood or anything until we got to the mentioning of the Sonic.exe part, which I really didn't feel that was necessary to be there. Like, adding music from Sonic.exe, it just doesn't work. That's all I'm having to say, is that it just doesn't work. Anyways, with that being the case, and that being said, this is probably just me, wrapping up this review. There's nothing really much to say. But like I'm always gonna say, and like I'll always continue to say, this is simply my own personal opinion. And if you happen to disagree with me, that's fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions in regards to these creepypastas, and this is simply my own personal thoughts. My final rating of this story would have to be I'm gonna give this one a 4 out of 10. I'm giving it a 4 because it's an older story. Like, it's an older story that I remember narrating from 2019. The grammar of its own self needs to be revised. The sentence structuring was good, but it does need to be fixed up too. But and the cliches in this needs to be taken out because it's not really necessary. Remove the Sonic.exe stuff that it just wasn't necessary to add the Sonic.exe music. The cliches does need to be removed unless there's a big reason for it. But other than that, the story was not terrible. It's not a bad story. I definitely would have to say it's not a terrible one, but it could have been better. Anyways, that being the case, that being said, what did you guys think about this creepypasta? Did you all enjoy it? Did you all not? Also, what we have done personally to help make this story a lot better? Feel free to leave me now what your thoughts are down in the comments section down below. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. And if you happen to be brand new here on this channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe because I make brand new videos every single day. Don't forget to ring the notification bell to when I upload. And sorry about, I kind of heard knocking all of a sudden. My brother's trying to find, I think, a moth flew into their house. So, yeah. Anyways, with that being the case, that being said, I'll be seeing you all in the next video. Thank you so much. And as always, please roll the outro because I'm out.